Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here. It's Monday. I know how you're feeling. I know, and it's 9/11, so lots of reasons not to be in a good mood. Well, you know what? We're just going to defy the odds, and we're going to cheer you up anyway, put you in a good mood. I'm here. I'm rip-roaring. I'm ready to fight. It's time to have a nice conversation. Let's talk this morning a little bit first about Joe Biden's press conference in Vietnam. It was, well, about as weird as it gets for the president.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word.
Yep.
I was going to put him
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and we've got video. We're going to talk about it, and I think at this point in time, I'm going to call it, I think they're going to replace him, which would make you feel kind of happy, except for the fact that you know that the people that the Democrats might replace President Biden with are way worse.
God! No!
Yeah,
God,
you know, I've got a list of names, and I know. Calm down, Michael Scott. Okay, we're going to talk about that because we have to. I don't think the president's going to be healthy enough to stand for re-election. I mean, we all know that in 2020, when he ran for president, he was doing it from some kind of secure bunker somewhere. Is he going to do that again? He's going to have to, because at this point, I don't see how he can get away with doing campaign events in public where people have phones on him and it's not entirely controlled. And it was just wait until you see the video that I play for you. It's pretty weird. The Wake Up America show is brought to you by viewers and listeners like you. Don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to the channel if it's your very first time here on the Wake Up America show. We all appreciate having you here today, so make sure that you show your appreciation for the content that you're watching by clicking like and subscribing to the channel. We all appreciate when you guys help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. You can also text the show today at 573-319-1586. Again, we want to hear from you on your thoughts today on what's in the news at 573-319-1586. Again, text us today at 573-319-1586. We appreciate hearing from you today. I'd love to hear your stories from where you were on the day that the Twin Towers and Building 7 fell. As you can see from my Twitter account this morning, if you're following me over at AP for Liberty, you can see I'm already rip-roaring, ready for a fight, calling them out because, of course, today is, well, my unkind term for it is conspiratard Christmas, if you will. And I always like to rile up the conspiratards on 9/11 just because I used to be one, right? I used to be like, well, what did happen with Building 7? Until I actually read views and news and things, opinions that disagreed with me and realized, oh, okay, well, actually, all of this stuff that I thought that I had been seeing in all of these like loose change documentaries and all the Alex Jones prison planet stuff that I've been watching was actually, well, tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. But I think for most people, conspiracies are kind of like a religion, right? It's like a sacred cow, right? It's like trying to tell a Catholic that the Pope is not the infallible word of representative vicar of Christ here on earth, right? And they're not going to agree with you. It's like, okay, well, it's a religion. They have faith in 9/11 conspiracy theories. But of course, people exist entirely in binary thinking patterns. So they say, well, if you don't agree with the missile hit the Pentagon view, then you must believe the official narrative. No, actually, I'm sorry. No, I don't have to agree with George W. Bush or with Alex Jones. I can think both are wrong for many of the same reasons. Well, of course, there's the big question here for many of the 9/11 inside job people is the problem of, well, Ron Paul said that it was blowback. And it can't be blowback and an inside job. So if you say it's an inside job, you're calling Ron Paul a liar because Ron Paul, who was a congressman at the time, had access to intelligence briefings and said that it was blowback for our policies in the Middle East. If it can't be both. Remember, no, it's not binary thinking. I want to break you out of your binary thinking patterns. Anyways, we can fight about that all we wanted to our heart's content a little bit later, but I got exciting news today. One of the biggest guests we've had here on the Wake Up America show, joining us for the very first time, the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Winsome Sears, is going to be joining us today at 8 a.m. Central Time. So a little bit less than an hour from now. We're very excited to have Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears. She's been a champion for freedom here in the United States, and she's here fresh on the heels of the news that the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, has pardoned Scott Smith. Do you remember the father who was arrested at the Loudoun? Some people call it Loudoun because it's Scottish. Or I just say Loudon. Loudon, that's what they call it out east. But Loudoun County father who was arrested at a school board meeting because his daughter had been assaulted by a transgender student who had gone into the bathroom that was not assigned to their biological sex. Remember this situation? I've got the video. I'll play it for you. Obviously, it's brutal stuff, but I'm excited to have Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears to talk about that and maybe how we can export that winning model that Republicans in Virginia have brought to bear to other states as well, because frankly, I think this is a victory for parents. This is a victory against groomers. This is a victory against social justice warriors. This is a major victory against the left. And I'd love to hear what Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears has to say about it this morning. You'll be able to hear her this morning at 8 a.m. I made a promise to myself and to you that I would continually improve the Wake Up America show since we got started a little over a year ago. And that I would improve the quality of the show, the quality of the content, and most importantly, the quality of the guests. And I can say promises made, promises fulfilled on the Wake Up America show. Don't the guests just keep getting better and better? The Wake Up America show really is your go-to destination in the morning for the best in liberty content and news. And here we have no sacred cows. We break everybody out of their binary thought patterns, left, right, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or Socialist. And we think for ourselves here. Dare to be different. Dare to start your day with a big brain way. The Wake Up America show with your host, AP for Liberty. Make sure you follow us on all of our social channels at number 4, AP for Liberty. Nathan Klein already with the jokes this morning saying that 7-Eleven was a part-time job. We love to hear from you today. Don't forget today, too, you can text us at 573-319-1586. Also, huge news. We're going to be talking to John Miltimore today at 7:30 a.m. The governor of New Mexico, the governor of New Mexico, Democratic New Mexico governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, is coming under fire from members of her own party after she temporarily suspended open and concealed carry across Albuquerque under an emergency health an emergency health order. That's right. Over the weekend, the New Mexico governor claimed that she had the emergency powers to suspend the Second Amendment in light of a tragedy where an 11-year-old had been killed in a road rage incident. We will be talking about that with John Miltimore this morning. But really, the story that's even bigger than that, it seems, is that many members of her own party have actually turned against her. Some of the names of the Democrats that are some of the biggest anti-gunners out there have actually publicly and openly disagreed with the governor of New Mexico on this one. I know we were all feeling like it was bizarro world yesterday. I don't know if you saw some of these that I was tweeting and posting about the left, but I just am fascinated by this phenomenon. I imagine that you must feel that way too. But we will talk about that this morning. And we've got John Miltimore. He'll be joining us this morning at 7:30 a.m. Central Time. So about 20 minutes from now, we'll speak to John Miltimore. He is the editor at large at the Foundation for Economic Education. You don't want to miss that interview. So what else have we got for him, Johnny? Yes, it's going to be an awesome show for you today. Oh, this was another story. We're going to talk about this at 8:30 that really caught my attention. And I might talk about it again later this week. But this is hate crime experts to rule whether English countryside harbors, quote, rural racism. What the hell? Lived realities of ethnic minorities outside of the city to be studied amid fears they experience an exclusively English environment. It's like, what the hell are you talking about here? No, I'm talking, this is a real story. This is what the UK is doing. They are, quote unquote, people who got a degree in hate crime. They're called hate crime experts, are going to go out into the rural communities in England to ensure that these people aren't experiencing an exclusively English environment. I thought that's what the point of importing all of the migrants from all the third world countries to come in and rape and destroy and pillage your country. Am I wrong or am I wrong? Am I right? I think I'm right. Isn't that the point, right? To bring in all of the diversity from the third world countries to destroy countries' national identities like the United Kingdom and Anglicanism. It's really anti-white, of course, which we can get into later today at 8:30 a.m. Hate crime experts going out into the country to try and make sure that people aren't experiencing an exclusively English environment. We don't want people in England to experience an exclusively English environment. That would be bad, I guess. Anyways, we'll talk about that this morning at 8:30 a.m. You don't want to miss it. All right, let's go to Joe Biden over in Vietnam yesterday with some of the comments that he was making, which honestly, it would make somebody who was a patient at a mental asylum sound like they're sane. Take a look and take a listen.
I just think that there are other things on leaders' minds, and they respond to what's needed at the time. And look, nobody likes having celebrated international meetings if you don't know what you want at the meeting. If you don't have a game plan. He may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
What? What is it? What are they saying? What is he talking about there? It's the oddest thing I've ever heard. Hold on, we got more.
Let's see. I'm just following my orders here.
Following my orders here.
Staff, if anybody haven't spoken to? I ain't calling on you. I'm calling. I said I have 5 questions. Anita, BOA.
Okay, what's going on here?
We talked about at the conference overall. We talked about stability. We talked about making sure that the third world, the southern hemisphere had access to changes, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all. He came up to me.
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bro. Yeah. Joe Biden's staff cuts off a rambling Joe Biden mid-sentence and abruptly ends his news conference. Have you ever heard of something like this happening with any other president where they cut off their news conference in the middle of this? This is the person who is This guy has nuclear codes. This guy could destroy the entire world at the push of a button if he wanted to. What is going on?
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. Yeah. I was going to put him. Excuse me.
So who are they going to get to replace this guy? I don't think this guy makes it, honestly. And the Democrats are really fretting about the low approval ratings from the Biden administration, and the widespread concerns about his age are no secret. That it is, if it's a secret at all, it's an open secret. And the factors that are going into Joe Biden's fall from, he is not well. The president of the United States is not well. And it's not only is it showing in his speech and behaviors, but it's showing in his approval ratings. I think people are tired of seeing the person who's supposed to be the leader of the free world, who can't even get through a single press conference without saying he's got to do what his staff says and then go to bed, and stumbling through this and that and every which way, right? We've all feel this way sometimes when it's 7:15 in the morning and we haven't had our Founding Flavors coffee yet. By the way, if you haven't seen or heard, if you don't follow Twitter, all the drama on Twitter, apparently I'm being accused of stealing my Founding Flavors coffee. I'm being accused of theft for my Founding Flavors coffee. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's continue to talk about the news right now. Almost 3/4 of the population, according to a poll, shows Biden lacks the stamina and sharpness. Almost 3/4 of the poll, pulling a Biden here. Here we go. I'm not president of the United States, right? Almost 3/4 of the population believes Biden lacks the stamina and sharpness to serve effectively as president, even among Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents. 67% asserted the party should choose someone else as its standard bearer in the 2024 election. Despite all that, most Democrats believe that he will be the nominee in the next election. Of course, it's extremely difficult to defeat an incumbent president in a primary. And the president's two declared opponents, Marianne Williamson, right, not going to happen, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are going nowhere fast. But I was seeing this morning that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is sort of floating the idea of a third-party run, which I say, I wasn't a real big RFK Jr. fan because, I don't truck with the crazies. But I do think that it would be good for our democracy to have RFK Jr. specifically run as a candidate for president of the United States on a third-party ticket or on, just as an independent ballot. What do you say? Go RFK? But I've got a list of 5 possible alternatives to Biden if he doesn't make it. Of course, the first one would be Vice President Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is the one who, of course, is the most obvious one that could possibly take over for him. Thank you, Studio 314. For the super chat, or excuse me, not super chat. We call them Rumble Rants. We appreciate that very much. Calling me a thieving rapscallion, yes. The Onion Dip is asking if we've mentioned New Mexico yet. Nope, we're going to get to that here in just a couple of minutes. We're speaking about Joe Biden and possible alternatives to him. We're going to talk to John Miltimore here in about 15 minutes about the New Mexico governor, and I'll play the clip from her in just a few minutes. But I want to talk about potential alternatives. Of course, one of the biggest names of people that might take over for Joe Biden, should he have to step down, would be California Governor Gavin Newsom. Yeah, I know. But he could win. A lot of people would vote for him just based on his looks alone. You have no idea how superficial people are. And just on the fact that Governor Gavin Newsom is a younger guy, he's a Democrat, he probably seems cool to a lot of people. I know, not to the people who are watching and listening to the show. I know. Listen, don't shoot the messenger here, okay? It's just like a lot of things that I tell you that I know you don't want to hear, right? I kill sacred cows, I attack the conspirators, and I'm telling you that I think if Governor Gavin Newsom steps in, he's got a good shot at being the president of the United States. Stop it. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't be mad. Don't leave. Listen, that's the thing about the Wake Up America show, is stick around long enough, you're going to hear something that you do want to hear, but that sometimes you do have to sit through things that you don't like to hear. Another one, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Yes. I don't call him Booty Juice. That's Joe Biden's name for him. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is his actual name, but Of course, we call him Booty Juice. We stand booty juice. Yes,
How
booty.
dare you?
Okay, Greta, don't yell at me. The transportation secretary, of course, is firmly located in the mainstream of the Democratic Party. He ran for president himself and then got a nice little cabinet seat, right? But Booty Juice is a likely presidential candidate at some point in the future, but it kind of remains to be seen if Democrats will be able to maintain their interest in him, right? His poor performance with black voters in 2020 is another source for concern because, of course, that's where the Democratic Party is at. Another one that I know you're not going to want to hear this name, but I got to say it anyway. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Yikes. She's a woman. They'll vote for her because she's a woman. They'll vote for Governor Gavin Newsom because he's a handsome younger guy. They'll vote for Governor Gretchen Whitmer, even though she bent us all over, bent all of Michiganders over and said, take it. I'm not going to be Austin. It's too early to start with these kinds of analogies and metaphors. All right. Anyways, we all know how she behaved during COVID-19, but it did help me to convince my forthcoming wife, Stephanie Cole, to become my wife. So her crackdown on COVID helped to make the decision for Stephanie, my wife, to flee Michigan, come to Missouri, where it's the land of freedom. And of course, we got married after that. So I guess thank you, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. I don't know. And then a bunch of FBI agents tried to kidnap her. So so people think she's cool. How about this one for a presidential candidate? I know you're going to give me the crap right now. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yes. I know, right? She endorsed Biden in July, but not with a lot of enthusiasm. She says, I think he's done quite well given the limitations that we have. So she did say that she endorsed Biden. But if Biden steps down and isn't able to run, who knows? And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you think that she could actually be a legitimate contender in the Democratic presidential nominee? She has started to sell out to the establishment these days, so it's entirely possible that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez turns around and decides to run for president of the United States. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. There's no way that we're going to be, I think that we're going to make it, that Joe Biden's going to make it to the election next year, not with stuff like this.
The Southern Hemisphere had access to change it, had access. It wasn't confrontational at all. He came with
Thank you, everybody. This ends the press conference. Thanks.
Thank you, anybody. Thank you, everybody. All right, let's talk about this. The Lieutenant Governor of New Mexico declared that the First and Second Amendment doesn't exist because of an emergency, right? So this is probably the worst, most tyrannical 60 seconds you will ever hear from a politician until the next time a politician speaks. Take a listen.
Yeah. But your point is valid.
You took an oath to the Constitution. Isn't it unconstitutional to say you cannot exercise your carry license?
With one exception, and that is if there's an emergency, and I've declared an emergency for a temporary amount of time, I can invoke additional powers. No constitutional right, in my view, including my oath, is intended to be absolute. There are restrictions on free speech. There are restrictions on my freedoms. In this emergency, this 11-year-old and all these parents who have lost all these children, they deserve my attention to have the debate about whether or not in an emergency we can create a safer environment. Because what about their constitutional rights? I took an oath to uphold those too. And if we ignore this growing problem without being bold, I've said to every other New Mexican, your rights are subrogated to theirs. And they are not, in my view.
Wait a minute, okay. You're talking about crimes. There are already laws against the crimes, so how are their rights?
I got it, but again, if I'm unsafe, who's standing up for that right? If this climate is so out of control, somebody should do something. I'm doing as much as I know to do.
There you go. If the governor of New Mexico feels unsafe, then that means that your rights are forfeit. Good morning. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're grateful and glad to have you here as a viewer and a listener. Make sure that you click like on the stream that you're watching us on this morning and share it with your friends on social media. We'd appreciate it if you would introduce us to one of your friends if you're a fan. And if you're new here today, but you enjoy the content, Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're very grateful for all of your support this morning, and we appreciate you. We've got a great show coming up for you. Next is John Miltimore. He's going to react to the governor of New Mexico's statement that the First and the Second Amendment can be suspended if she feels unsafe. And then a big, huge, awesome interview. We can't wait for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Winsome Sears, to join us. She's going to join us this morning at 8 a.m. to talk about the story where the Virginia Governor, Glenn Youngkin, has issued a pardon for Scott Smith. That is the Loudoun County father who was arrested at a school board meeting last year when his daughter had been assaulted by a transgender student who was using the bathroom that was not assigned to their biological sex. Yes, and that had happened twice. The father was outraged at the meeting. He was violently subdued and arrested and charged with disorderly conduct at a public meeting. And after several court cases, it finally reached the governor's desk where Governor Glenn Youngkin issued a pardon. We have the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia joining us this morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. You do not want to miss a single moment of the Wake Up America show because we got so much great stuff coming up for you. On 9/11, we'll talk about that a little bit later, too, as well, on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Donald Trump and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Petersen is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website, and I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy Bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake, yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes, you like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bullshit. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bullshit blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's revolutionary roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's patriotic perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks, just pure patriotic pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your Founding Flavors at apforlibertyshop.com. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here. Don't forget, if you're a regular viewer of the show, you know what to do. Click that like button, and if you enjoy the content today and it's your first time here, subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on so you can get updates whenever we go live. The Wake Up America Show is every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. So set a calendar by it. Join us in the morning with a nice, fresh, hot cup of Founding Flavors coffee that you can get at apforlibertyshop.com. That's right. You don't get Founding Fathers themed coffee anywhere else in the world. Only one place. The original idea, the OG, at apforlibertyshop.com. Well, I played that clip just a few minutes ago of the governor of New Mexico, Governor Grisham, saying that your rights are forfeit, apparently, just so long as she doesn't feel safe. If she doesn't feel safe, well, then I guess you don't have any constitutional rights. But not everybody agrees with her. As a matter of fact, take a look at some of these tweets I've got pulled up on the screen right now. As you can see, here's one of the most anti-gun Democrats in Congress, Ted Lieu. He says, I support gun safety laws, but this order from the governor of New Mexico violates the U.S. Constitution. What are we talking about here? And then David Hogg, remember him? He was one of the students from the Parkland shooting, big anti-gunner, says he supports gun safety, but there's no such thing as a public health emergency exception to the U.S. Constitution. What kind of world are we living in here? We're agreeing with Democrats. I don't know. I feel weird. I feel unsafe. I guess, well, since I feel unsafe, that means that nobody here has any more rights or freedoms until I feel safe again. Joining us now to discuss is the editor-at-large at the Foundation for Economic Education. It's Miltimore Mondays with John Miltimore. Good morning, John. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How about you, AP?
All right. What was your take when you saw that video from the governor of New Mexico?
Oh, it was wild. And, you know, like I told you off air that I hadn't really seen this story till last night when you shared it with me. It's pretty crazy. And I think we kind of set the precedent for this stuff during the pandemic, right? When you can declare a public health emergency and people saw what they could do once they did that. The amount of blowback she's getting is good. It's also surprising. Like I got to admit, I didn't see Ted Lieu coming, you know, after a Democratic governor for this. I didn't see David Hogg doing that. I think, you know, there are people that see there is creeping authoritarianism out there, and you know, people both on the right and the left say, no, you can't do that. You can't just unilaterally violate the U.S. Constitution. So it's great to see that. I hope these impeachment proceedings go forward. Like I think, you know, you need to set an example when people willfully violate constitutional rights and civil liberties. I think you need to make an example of those people and remind them that no, you can't just shelve our civil liberties because you feel unsafe or because a tragedy happens. You know, I looked just briefly before, you know, we went on air, and 500 people a year die in New Mexico from traffic fatalities, right? Like that is a tragedy. But we don't tell people we're going to take away your cars or have you drive, you know, 40 miles an hour to try to fix that. That's sort of like a price for, you know, living in a free society. So yeah, I hope Governor Grisham gets slapped down over this, and it kind of puts the fear into other governors who have, you know, probably similar plans.
Now, John, the people who are on the Democratic side of things who have been calling her out, Ted Lieu and David Hogg and some others, I kind of doubt the veracity of their appeals to reason on this. And here's why. I'm not a big conspiracy guy. Today is 9/11, so it's kind of conspiracy Christmas. But I will say that when it comes to the left, a lot of these people, especially people like Ted Lieu, they don't make any decisions if they don't look at the polling. And part of me wonders if they haven't seen something, some kind of poll, or like seen some kind of like that there isn't something that they know that we don't, right? In regards to whether or not this is okay. Because here's the thing. I think that this is what the left largely wants in terms of using emergency powers to take away our guns. Like Beto O'Rourke, and we're coming. Yes, we're coming. Hell yes, we're coming for your AR-15s and your AK-47s. They talk a big game about democracy, but I don't believe them, John. I think that they're more than happy to see things like this happen as long as it doesn't interfere with their political position as it stands now. I think that they're probably saying, wait a minute, we need about 5 or 10 more years before we start doing this kind of stuff. I mean, that's my, you know, I'm on the plane and these mother effers are not real moment. What do you think?
I'll say this, your cynicism is warranted, okay? Because I get it. Like I said, I was surprised to see Hogg and Lieu come out with this position. So I get where you're coming from. At the same time, David Hogg's not trying to win an election, right? And my hunch is Ted Lieu's, I couldn't tell you his district. My hunch is Ted Lieu's probably not that worried about, you know, winning an election either. I do think, you know, there's self-doubt in sane Democrats as to, you know, how authoritarian can we be to institute what we think is good policy. And that to me is good and that's healthy. Like I haven't seen a lot of sane things in this country for a while. And the fact that there is some self-doubt saying like, look, we think guns are bad, okay? But we're not gonna do anything to win, to get guns away out of the hands of people. Like to me, that's a good thing if that's where it's coming from. I don't look at them yet, like until I see more and think that this is some sort of, you know, three-dimensional chess where they're trying to fool us. But I do agree, my sentiment's like yours. I think they want Americans to not have guns. I think it's that simple, and that they'll kind of use any pretext to get that. And because they think, you know, maybe it'll reduce gun violence or make us safer. You know, the reasoning there, it's funny because for people that actually think deeply on this issue, you can see gun control. Like there's nothing that this country can really do short of confiscating all the guns to reduce gun violence. Because if you look, all these little gun control policies about reducing the size of clips, you know, only using, you know, getting rid of just AR-15s, like that's not going to reduce gun deaths. Like, and you can go back and look at like the Brady bill and the things that we did when we did have, you know, assault weapon bans. Gun violence in this country did not go down because of that. And the government's own studies have said that. Handguns account for, you know, we hear a lot about AR-15s, but the truth is handguns account for the vast majority of gun deaths in this country, both through homicides and, you know, self-inflicted, you know, gunshots. So there's no, I think people want to think there's a silver bullet for this, right? I think for leftists, they believe government can fix all these problems if we just get sensible people in a room together. I think we know better, Austin, because we understand, you know, libertarian philosophy, we understand economics. These are complex problems. There's no simple silver bullet for things like gun violence. And to me, any solution would be far worse. You know, disarming people to me is not a solution to anything. You can look at other countries. You know, China doesn't have a lot of gun deaths either, but do we want to go that route? And I say hell no to that. And part of it, we, you know, like I said, why do we focus on gun deaths so much in this country? And it's not just, you know, all gun deaths, right? Like Chicago, you know, we hear those statistics every weekend. You see a bunch of people, but, you know, we kind of ignore that. But you have these spasms of mass violence and the whole nation focuses on it, and we blame each other and point fingers. And the truth is, you know, these mass shootings, are they terrifying? Yeah, they really are. but they account for they're still in this country exceedingly rare. But I think we do have people thinking that they happen every single day and that there's an epidemic of them.
Well, there is one, I think, in Chicago every weekend, isn't there?
Again, it depends on how you define mass violence. Like if you're talking about, or a mass shooting, like the FBI had for years a definition that was kind of the standard everyone used. A mass shooting had to be 5 or more people, and it had to be indiscriminate, right? Like it had to be somebody, a gang shootout doesn't qualify. The OK Corral would not qualify, okay, or something like that. It has to be like these mass shootings were a single perpetrator, or maybe multiple perpetrators. It's usually single because it is indiscriminate, right? Like if somebody just takes a gun and starts shooting in a school or something, and that is terrifying, right? Like I don't want to diminish that, because I think, I'm a parent, I got 3 kids. That's your worst nightmare. Something like that could actually happen. And then you look and you consider and I don't want to diminish this because it is terrifying, but you're just as likely to die in a plane crash, or like you or your child are far more likely to die in a car crash than one of these mass shootings. But most people don't think of it that way, right? And I get it. We're not all bean counters crunching numbers and trying to predict odds here. But I think what this goes back to is politics. The left doesn't like the gun culture in America. They want the guns out of the hands, and other people, that Second Amendment proponents say, no, these are our, and let's be honest, most of the people I know are that have guns, they're the most responsible people with a gun you can think of, right? Like these are people that they really understand their weapons, they're careful with them. But you do have these examples of people that just want to get their hands on a firearm and do suicide by cop or whatever. And we live in that society today. That's a different question how we arrive there. But it is a terrifying thing when you have young people, especially, that want to go and buy something and go on a rampage.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here. I'm speaking to the editor-at-large at the Foundation for Economic Education, Jon Miltimore. He joins us every Monday. It's Miltimore Monday, or Mondays with Miltimore. We haven't decided what we'll brand that for yet, but we always appreciate him getting up early and joining us today. We're talking about the governor of New Mexico, Grisham, issuing an emergency health order for 30 days to suspend the rights of citizens to open or conceal carry. And we're having a discussion about that, and as well as our constitutional rights with Mr. Miltimore here. Jon, when it comes to the actual lawfulness of what it is that she's done, there's been a bit of a debate. I saw that the Daily Wire's Michael Knowles, for example, said yesterday, unpopular opinion, but the government does have the right to suspend certain rights under certain circumstances. When I look at the Constitution, for example, in times of war, for insurrection, for example, the right of habeas corpus, for example, it can be suspended, at least according to the Constitution. Should that be true?
No, no, really. Like and again, here's the issue. We live in this country, where you have the federal government. How many of us have actually read New Mexico's Constitution? I'm gonna admit I have not. So I don't know New Mexico's Constitution. I do know today, the way that we interpret the U.S. Constitution today, that the U.S. Constitution takes precedence, right? Like whatever New Mexico's Constitution says, that doesn't mean that you can violate the U.S. Constitution. In the U.S. Constitution, the Supreme Court are pretty clear on this issue. Now that goes back. That's more of a 20th century interpretation. I think there would have been a case for what Knowles is saying in the 19th century, when states were looked at as, in the early 19th century, especially before the Civil War, states were looked at as like the federal government didn't have the authority to do these things, or to their powers weren't as expansive as today, and states did have police powers. And again, I don't know the New Mexico Constitution, but I wouldn't be surprised if certain constitutions, they do have the right to suspend civil liberties during emergencies. The problem with that is, like we saw during COVID, you can kind of declare an emergency for just about anything, right? You had obviously a better case even for COVID. Here we're talking about declaring a public health emergency for gun violence. It's a very strange thing, and that's the problem when you have these caveats in legal documents that allow leaders political leaders to suspend civil liberties during emergencies. They will declare emergencies to violate political rights, and that's very dangerous. And so I think even if they might have the legal authority, which I don't think they do have in today's interpretation of the U.S. Constitution, I'm against violating civil liberties even because of an emergency. We saw how that went in 2020, right? Like, they don't want to give power back. Like, once they have it, they're like, no, we'll see. They're going to slow roll things. People with power like having power. And how well did that work out for Americans? It didn't work out well. So I think the governor's action was both wrong from a legal perspective and from a moral perspective. And I think it was stupid too, because she right now is getting a lot of media attention that I don't think she was quite expecting. And there are, who knows where these impeachment proceedings go. Like I said, I hope they're serious about it and they hold her feet to the fire, because this is serious stuff.
Do you think that citizens who defy these orders, as I saw that there were some citizens who had an open carry protest the other day, do you think that citizens who defy those orders are in the right?
I really am a defender of civil disobedience. I think if you look at, there's a strong American tradition of that when it's done peacefully. The problem with this is we're talking about carrying firearms. So I think it's doubly important when you're doing it. You need to be peaceful if you're going to be standing against an order like this, exercising civil disobedience, because one does worry, because firearms are involved, it could escalate, right? So I think if I was advising these people, I'd say, yeah, protest it. But I'd be very wary about giving any law enforcement the pretext to do you harm or to escalate the situation. It's more serious. So anybody that wants to protest this and exercise civil disobedience, I'm like, great, but be careful about it, because like if law enforcement might be more trigger happy than usual because they know you're carrying.
John Miltimore, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today before we let you go?
Just that I like your T-shirt, man. Like, I got to get one of those myself. I got to start, showing the "Don't Tread on Me" a little bit, because they were making such a big deal out of it and trying to turn it into some sort of, symbol of loons and fanatics. So I gotta get myself one. Is that available in the Austin gift shop?
It is at ap4libertyshop.com. Actually, I just got mine in yesterday, so I was excited to wear it today. And I wore it, of course, because that little boy who got kicked out of school for a day for having the Gadsden flag. So yes, get that at ap4libertyshop.com, John, and hopefully you will wear it proudly and let people know where you got it from. Thank you.
One of these weekends, you're going to see me wearing it on the show. So
great. Oh, and John, your Substack, real quick.
Yeah, check it out. The Take on Substack. I write there every day. So check it out. And we're also, all of our content's on fee.org. Check us out there. And just one last plug, go Packers. You might not be able to see my cup, but my Green Bay Packers took care of business against the hated Chicago Bears yesterday. So
there you go. All right. John Miltimore, he is the editor-at-large at the Foundation for Economic Education. Thank you very much for your time today, John, and we'll see you next Monday.
Hey, thanks for having me on, AP. See you next week.
Thank you very much. What did you think of John Miltimore? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. A little less than 10 minutes, or I guess actually no, 13 minutes, sorry. 13 minutes until we get to speak to Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Winsome Sears. She's going to talk to us today about Glenn Youngkin, who issued a pardon for the father who was arrested at a Loudoun County School Board meeting. Well, let's watch the video. Take a look at this. This is Scott Smith right here. His daughter was assaulted in a bathroom by a member of the opposite sex who was in the bathroom that was not assigned to their biological sex. I think you know where I'm going with this one. Here he is right here in the center.
Not men is men or women is women. I also think that transgender is wrong too. You are who you are. You cannot change that.
Father whose daughter was assaulted.
She's trying to disrupt things. She's trying to disrupt things.
stepfather was then prosecuted, charged with disorderly conduct at a public meeting to which he had to make many court appearances and pay lots in legal fees and lawyers in order to fight it. Well, the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, who sailed to election victory after the former governor of Virginia, a guy by the name of Terry McAuliffe, famously said, his famous last words, that parents don't have a right to know what goes on in their to be involved with their kids' public education. Of course, the parents in Virginia weren't having that, and they swept Glenn Youngkin and Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, who will be joining us in 11 minutes from now, swept them to victory on the backs of that. Let's hear from Glenn Youngkin with his appearance after he issued that pardon to Scott Smith. Take a look and a listen.
Because a lot of people will remember this case, this showdown in Loudoun County, which is outside D.C. here. He had a daughter who'd been sexually assaulted. He went to a school board. He was demanding information, trying to get answers. It got pretty heated at one point, and he actually got arrested. His name is Scott Smith. He expressed frustration this summer when he found out he was going to have to face trial this fall on a remaining charge. He said, "I have yet to hear from our governor, Glenn Youngkin." Is your administration in contact with him about his case?
We are in contact with him. And in fact, I spoke with Mr. Smith on Friday, and I had the privilege of telling Mr. Smith that I would pardon him. And we did that on Friday. We righted a wrong. He should have never been prosecuted here. This was a dad standing up for his daughter. And just to remind everyone, his daughter had been sexually assaulted in the bathroom of a school, and no one was doing anything about it. And in fact, it took the election of a new governor, me, and my directive to our Attorney General, Jason Miyares, to investigate this, to uncover the fact that the superintendent had in fact covered it up. And he was immediately terminated when the final report from the grand jury was issued. Mr. Smith did what any father would do, what any parent would do, was stand up for their child. And even worse, what then happened was the perpetrator was moved to another school and sexually assaulted another young woman. This was a gross miscarriage of justice, and I was so pleased to speak with him on Friday and be able to issue a full pardon for him.
Let's give it up to the governor of Virginia. Nice. You love to see it. That's great news. And we're very excited to be able to celebrate today with the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Winsome Sears, who will be joining us today. We're very excited to introduce for her very first time. She has had a remarkable journey in her life. She has roots in Jamaica, where she's from, to become the first woman of color to hold the position of Lieutenant Governor in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Sears has captured the attention and adoration of many. She's had a long career of public service. She served in the United States Marine Corps. She has had a commitment to leadership here in the United States, and as a member of the Republican Party. I'm very excited to have her join us today on the Wake Up America show. I'm going to take a brief little commercial break for our delicious Founding Flavors coffee while I go get ready for the next segment. I'll be right back in 2 shakes of a lamb tail. Don't go away on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
We have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the 4 olds. Old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So, your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have Glad You Came Out, and I'm so happy that you're queer. in the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, you know, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great. Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
It was 1946. A battle was fought, not overseas, but right here on American soil. The Battle of Athens, an intense struggle against election fraud and for the rights promised by our founding fathers. Driven by the Second Amendment, ordinary citizens stood tall and fought back. Help us expose this momentous battle of integrity and bravery. Your support can make a difference. Visit givesendgo.com/bleedamerican and pledge your support, because we believe in the power of truth, the strength of unity, and the spirit of we the people. Let us not forget, we bleed American.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning. Thanks for waiting, friends. I'm Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Don't forget to click like and subscribe to the channel if it's your very first time watching the Wake Up America show program. We've got great news for parents across the country. Those of you who have been following the show this morning know that we've been talking about a pardon that was issued by the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, for Scott Smith. He was the father who was arrested at a Loudoun County School Board meeting after his daughter had been sexually assaulted because, well, the school board apparently thought that it was appropriate for people of one biological sex to use the bathroom of the opposite for some reason. Well, the father not only did he get arrested, but he racked up lots of money in legal bills and fees that he had to spend on lawyers in order to fight these charges. Well, Governor Glenn Youngkin stepped in and issued him a pardon over this last week, and we're very excited to see it. So I thought to myself, well, who could I talk to about this one? I'm sure Governor Youngkin is very, very busy, but I know that there's somebody in Virginia that I've been waiting to talk to for quite a long time. I know many of you are big fans of her. She is one of the leading lights of the Republican Party these days, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears. She has served in the U.S. Marine Corps. She now serves the good people of Virginia as the Lieutenant Governor there, and she's joining us live right now. Good morning, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Austin. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your listeners.
Glad to have you here, and thanks for being generous with your time this morning, Lieutenant Governor. So, give us your reaction to the pardon that Governor Youngkin issued this last week.
I think it's an excellent move. And in fact, Scott Smith has said that he is very grateful for it because, believe it or not, this is what he said, he could not trust his own justice system. Imagine that. This is America. And I keep wondering what is going on, because here was a father whose daughter was raped. In Austin, if you have a child who was raped, you are going to move heaven and earth to get to the bottom of this. And that's all he wanted, was to find out what happened with my child. Did you know that this was happening with my child? Did you do anything about this? No. As it turns out, the perpetrator was sent from one school to another school where he committed rape again. And so now, as a father, he has to deal with his daughter and the mental emotions. She's going to suffer with this for a long time. And he was dragged out like a dog and arrested and charged with obstruction of justice and disorderly conduct. And Governor Youngkin righted a wrong.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, a lot of people paid attention to this case, and a lot of people think that the reason for the election of yourself and Governor Youngkin was due to the public outrage about things like this. Do you attribute Governor Youngkin and your victory in Virginia, in a state that was heavily Democratic? It had almost one-party rule there for quite some time. Do you attribute issues like these as to the reason why people like Youngkin and yourself were elected?
Absolutely, because what people understood was the same thing that happened to Scott Smith as a parent seeking redress from his government for his daughter could happen to them. That was number one. Number two, because of the response by our Democratic governor in Virginia to COVID, he closed all the schools, closed the businesses, people lost their business, closed the houses of worship, closed everything. Then people understood that when power comes to some of these very far left Democrats, they will look to absolutely control your lives. And when it came to their children, even Democrats were saying, no, this is a bridge too far. And believe it or not, Scott, one of the things that the Democrats, when they had full control, when they had the governor's mansion, they had the House, and they had the Senate in 2020, right before our election the next year, and I want to read this because this is very interesting. They changed Virginia law to eliminate the requirement for principals to report misdemeanor assault and battery in Virginia schools, on the buses as well, and at school-sponsored events, even battery on school staff. And when the Democrats lost to the governor, myself, and the attorney general, and we picked up the House, you know what they said? The Democrats said the reason they lost was because Austin, they had not gone far enough. Think about that. If that's not far enough, how far is far? So, folks, elections have consequences.
Darn right they do. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. That voice that you're hearing right now that speaks with power and authority is Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears of Virginia, who's joining us live right now, and we're grateful to have you here. If you like what you're hearing from her, don't forget to click like and subscribe on the Wake Up America show, and join us every Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. We are live broadcasting from Jefferson City, Missouri. Now, Lieutenant Governor, what I try and understand in all this, and just so you know where I come from the Liberty wing of the Republican Party, where I believe consenting adults should be able to lead the lifestyles they lead, provided they harm no one else. But for some reason, the left has decided that they want to target our children, which is a bridge too far for libertarian Republicans like myself. Why do you think that the left has placed so much emphasis on sexualizing children?
Austin, I don't understand their mindset, except that they always seem to know better than the rest of us on every issue. They want to control our lives. They want to control our children's lives. They want to tell us how to live. You must like what they like. Otherwise, you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're whatever it is. You're sexist, whatever they deem you. They label you. And the minute they label you, you've lost. So we can't afford that. And, it's the Saul Alinsky approach. I don't know what it is in these people that they want to control us, but we must not let them. we've got to fight back, because if you don't fight, then where will we be? We will not be the country where we're continuing, Scott. I mean, I keep on to call you Scott, Austin, this American experiment of where we control things. The government answers to us and not the other way around.
Do you think, Lieutenant Governor, that it's also wise for us to prevent the teaching of things like critical race theory in our schools for the same reasons?
We have to get back to, why do we have an education system? Is it to indoctrinate, or is it to ensure that the child has a sure and secure footing, a very good foundation, so that they will have a better chance in life? Is that what we want? Or is it, as I said, indoctrination? Folks, we've got to take things back. And because these school systems have full, pretty much, and total control of our tax dollars, then they dictate what happens in the schools. And so that's why we now know, which we should have before, that school board elections are important. There was a time when we probably said, it's just the school board, what? No, because this is where education starts. Our children must have marketable skills so that they can be a success in life. If we're teaching them all of this other stuff, which is not why we send our children to school, so that when we send our boy child to school, then other things are happening. He's dressing a certain way. And then when we pick the child back up, he's back to being himself. And we're wondering, when we bring the child home, what is going on with him? Something is wrong, because these school boards are making policies against us. Monopolies are not good. We need to break up that monopoly. And you know who wants that broken up as well? I believe school teachers do, because they're professionals. They don't want these types of ideologies in our schools. In fact, they don't even know what's good this week that won't be good next week. The pressure on them. And then they've got the COVID policies that shut the schools. So the children are already not learning. And now we have all of these other issues on top. Oh boy, things need to change, and they need to change fast. So that's why I've been pushing school choice now. Parents want that right.
I think you'll get a big applause from our audience for that one. Our audience is definitely very pro school choice, but the big question now, and some of the Republican presidential candidates that are running right now have the guts to come out and say, well, we think that there should be no federal Department of Education and the states should make their own rules and that we should have school choice. Do you go so far as to say that you think that the federal Department of Education should be abolished?
I've not really thought about that as much as just if we start with giving parents the right to choose where they should send their children to school because they know what's best, not the government, then I think we're on a better footing. Because listen, even A.G. Garland was a part of this, alleging domestic terrorism when the National School Board Association wrote a letter to him. And I've been hearing the White House, Senator Cotton was mentioning, U.S. Senator Cotton at one time, that he needed to exercise his authority under the Patriot Act, believe it or not, to investigate parents who simply want to come to school boards. And in fact, it turns out that there was U.S. attorneys apparently who had picked this up and had instructed their sheriffs and school boards to look out for this. Something is rotten, and it's not in Denmark. It is in our school system. And the faster that we can get parents in charge of their children's education, the better.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson, and the person that you're hearing talk all about freedom right now is Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears of Virginia. We're talking about the case of a parent in Loudoun County, Scott Smith, who received a pardon from the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, after he was arrested at a school board meeting for protesting when a person who is of a different biological sex used a girl's bathroom, and the father's daughter was sexually assaulted. When that father spoke up at the school board meeting, he was taken away, and he had many court cases after that were bearing down on him quite heavily. Thankfully, the governor of Virginia stepped in and issued a pardon for Scott Smith. Lieutenant Governor, is there a way to export the model of what you and Governor Youngkin have accomplished in Virginia? Because I lived in Northern Virginia for about 5 or 6 years. And when I did, I saw how much that formerly a red state had been turning purple to suddenly what people thought, well, this was going to be a very heavily Democratic state going forward because of all the federal employees in Northern Virginia. But then you and Governor Youngkin sort of turned that on its head and have now, captured the governorship of Virginia. Is there a way to clone both you and he and bring that to other states? What do you think is the secret sauce here that other states could emulate if they're in a similar situation where they may be a swing state?
So certainly, I think things came to a head here in Virginia because we were right after the presidential election, and people were looking to see, especially because of proximity to DC, what would happen. And so all eyes were on us. And what people understood was COVID policy is what changed everything, not COVID itself, because we saw, for example, in Florida that they didn't close their schools down. We saw in South Dakota that they didn't close their schools down and businesses down. We saw in the very much Republican-led areas that the response to the COVID is what really destroyed what learning our children, what little they were getting in the first place. And by the way, our children were failing before COVID. So elections are important. We have to get involved. Either we present ourselves as potential candidates and then eventual nominees, or we get behind the nominee and we help that nominee in whatever way we can, whether it's giving $5. You can't believe how far $5 go. Now, if you can spend more, then give more, please. But donate and then work. Put a bumper sticker on your car, put a sign in your yard. Go vote early, by the way. I'm no longer going to the polls. What I've decided to do is to get an absentee ballot. And once my Board of Election sent me a letter telling me they had received confirmation of my request, here's what my letter said. It said from now on, Austin, it said from now on, for every special election, they will mail a ballot to my home. For every general election, they will mail. And of course, for every primary election. Folks, this is how the other side is winning. This is how they're doing it. I will have a ballot, by the way, come September 22nd, early voting will start in Virginia. I will have a ballot on my table. Now, remember, the actual election day isn't till November, but here in September, I will have a ballot. All I have to do is fill in that little oval. We've got to start doing things differently. The rules have changed. We've got to change with them.
I agree with you. Lieutenant Governor Sears, anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go today?
Yes, America has to stay America. We have to remain that city on a shining hill. Folks, there is no utopia. And if we do find it, we're going to screw it up because we're there. That's what we do. We do it very well. So what I would say is live and let live. We don't have to love what this other person is doing or what I'm doing, whatever. Just, as the kids say on the streets, you do you. This is a free country. And my God, I can't imagine why it's so controversial for parents to want to be able to decide what's best for their children. No, we won't go that far.
I love it. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, thank you for being so generous with your time this morning. Thank you for your service to the good people of the United States as a U.S. Marine, Semper Fi, and of course, your service to the good people of Virginia. We appreciate you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And by the way, please buy my new book, How Sweet It Is, on Amazon or wherever books are sold.
There you go. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, How Sweet It Is. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you. What did you think of Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Listen, I made a promise that I would continually improve the Wake Up America show. Better content, better graphics, better videos, and of course, better guests. And I think promises made, promises kept. Don't you agree? All right. Well, when we get back from the Wake Up America show's commercial break, I got to go get a little drink of water. Ooh, how sweet it is to be loved by you. when we get back. Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis now apologizing for writing a letter for Danny Masterson, who was convicted of rape, and so now they're in trouble because they defended him publicly. It's all weird, and I've got an interesting point of view on it I think you want to hear when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
We are aware of the pain that has been caused by the character letters that we wrote on behalf of Danny Masterson.
We support victims. We have done this historically through our work and will continue to do so in the future.
A couple months ago, Danny's family reached out to us and they asked us to write character letters to represent the person that we knew for 25 years so that the judge could take that into full consideration relative to the sentencing.
The letters were not written to question the legitimacy of the judicial system or the validity of the jury's ruling.
They were intended for the judge to read and not to undermine the testimony of the victims or re-traumatize them in any way. We would never want to do that. And we're sorry if that has taken place.
Our heart goes out to every single person who's ever been a victim of sexual assault, sexual abuse, or rape.
Fringe. Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Glad to have you here. I know it's Monday. I know how you're feeling today, but guess what? We've got to wake up and smell the coffee and the BS. Something about that apology just strikes me as, I don't know, a little bit weird. Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis are facing a pretty big backlash and speaking out about the letters that they had written and seeking leniency in the prison sentence of Danny Masterson. I don't know if you guys heard that. Ding, ding, ding. That's the opening market bell. The actor who is best known for his role in the 70s show, he was found guilty of, well, you know what, 2 women more than 20 years ago. He was sentenced to the maximum, 30 years to life this past Thursday. The letters to the judge, which were published on Friday, describe the couple's friendship with Masterson. Here is what Ashton Kutcher wrote in his letter. I do not believe he is an ongoing harm to society. Having raised his daughter without a present father would be a, quote, tertiary injustice in and of itself, he says. In her letter, Kunis vouched for Masterson's, quote, exceptional character and the tremendous positive influence he has had on me and the people around him. This is an interesting case, right? So the letters contained a great deal of Scientological phrasing, like the Church of Scientology, a lot of the phrasing from the Church of Scientology. And it does seem as if it was intended to undermine the victims who were drugged by Danny. You can read those in their entirety in the Substacks that were published by journalist Yashar Ali. Now, they're defending their letters. They said they were intended for the judge to read, but I guess they never expected that people were going to read them publicly, because when they did, people said, well, it sounds as if you are undermining the victims to a large degree, right? So the letters from Kutcher and Kunis sought to portray Masterson, who was someone who was critical of drug use. Kutcher said he attributed not falling into the typical life of Hollywood drugs directly to Danny. Mila Kunis said Danny played a pivotal role in guiding me away from such destructive paths. Prosecutors had accused Masterson of drugging and then you-know-whatting 3 women in his home in the Hollywood Hills in LA between 2001 and 2003. The jury had deadlocked on the 3rd charge that he had done this to a woman as well. So in this video, they talk about how they're aware of the pain that they've caused by the letters, and Kunis goes out to say, our heart goes out to every single person who's ever been a victim of sexual assault, sexual abuse, or race. Oh, okay. Every single person. But I mean, you would think that if they were really, you would think that they would be able to say goes out to the victims of Danny Masterson, right? If they really wanted to be honest. But it seems as if they're trying to spread the blame around a little bit in my mind. But here's the thing. I'm trying to see both sides of this, because as someone who's had friends and been betrayed, I can tell you that for me, having a friend that stands by you no matter what it's extremely valuable, right? To me, it's so rare to find loyalty these days. Now, obviously, I work in careers and professions and run in social circles where, well, as Harry S. Truman said, if you want loyalty in politics, get a dog. Okay, yes, I get it. I understand. But in terms of my actual friendships, and I do have some friendships that have lasted for years and years, I value the loyalty that comes with these friendships and my personal relationships, right? So, my father, I think, and I had a conversation when we were kids. I was like, if I killed somebody, would you turn me into the cops? And I'm pretty sure he said no, right? That family would come before everything. And, I'm not saying that it's right for you. You shouldn't make make amends for I don't know. Think about somebody else, Joseph Stalin, right? Obviously, but I don't think that this comes close to that level. But I'll just say this. I mean, how would you react if it was your friend? Would you throw your friend under the bus? I'm honestly really curious to get your thoughts on this one because I'm so conflicted. It's two things can be true at once, that someone here has committed a horrible crime and that friendship and loyalty should reign above all, right? Now, maybe if somebody's like a psychotic serial killer or something like that, maybe you could say, okay, I understand that this isn't really somebody that, we had no idea who this person was. And maybe that should apply in this case between Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis and this Danny Masterson character. Maybe he really is the complete sleazeball and scumbag that a jury of his peers convicted him of being. But here's the thing. I have seen and I have known parents who their children have committed unspeakable crimes and are in jail right now, but their parents still love them. Their parents still say, good things about them and vouch for their character and want their child to be safe and to be, not to be, aggressed against in prison. Maybe they think, oh, well, they should serve out their term or they should be in jail for some time, but maybe not as much as it is. But, if it's your best friend or if it's your child, I mean, would you still try and vouch for their character in other senses, other than that sense? I mean, the reason why I'm conflicted is because, having been betrayed in your life, I'm not a Danny Masterson lover or anything like that here, but like if you've never experienced betrayal from friends, or if you've never been in a situation where you were down and people were kicking you and no one was standing by you, then it could be hard to kind of like, I don't know, visualize why this situation is a little bit trickier than perhaps at first it seems. I mean, I know it's popular to jump all over Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis for this, but I mean, would you stand by a friend if they were convicted of something like this, or would you throw them under the bus? I'm honestly really curious to hear your thoughts. Send me a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. I want to take a minute to talk to you about our sponsor. The Wake Up America Show is brought to you in part by Lear Capital, who are offering an awesome deal right now for those who call today to get a gold or silver coin investment. Start your investment journey by visiting their website, or if you want to get a $500 discount on your first order from gold, give them a call, 1-800-885-2175. That's right. You can get a $500 account credit on your first purchase of gold or silver at Lear Capital by calling them today. Again, you can only get the deal for $500 if you call them at 1-800-885-2175. Again, 1-800-885-2175 is the phone number you want to call if you want to get the $500 account credit. If you're just interested in getting more information today, I want to highly encourage you to learn more about investing in gold and silver. If you've never done it before, you can get a free gold and silver information kit at their website at learaustin.com. Again, the website, if you want to visit them today, if you're phone call averse, you don't get the $500 account credit if you don't call, so you have to call them if you want to get that account credit, right? So if you're just curious about learning more info, go to learaustin.com. If, however, you are serious about investing in gold and silver and you want to lock in that account credit, you got to call them today, 1-800-885-2175. That's 1-800-885-2175 today. You don't want to miss it. It is an awesome opportunity for you to get started investing in gold and silver. I highly endorse and recommend them. I endorse this for my family, my own family. I endorse Lear Capital and bring this deal to my family members. My mother-in-law, for example, I've recommended it to her. She recently came into some money recently. And I said you need to spread your investments around. But if you've already got stocks and you've already got bonds, and maybe you've got some, maybe you've already got treasury bonds, or you've got a Roth IRA or something that you've contributed to, for example, but you don't have any precious metals assets, it's a good idea to diversify. But I recommended Lear Capital to my mother-in-law, and the last thing that you ever want to do is get in trouble with money with your mother-in-law, right? So that's how confident I am that Lear Capital is a good and safe investment for you today. Call them at 1-800-885-2175. That's 1-800-885-2175. 2175 to get that gold and silver $500 account credit today. All right. Now, when we get back from the commercial break, what's going to happen? What are we going to talk about, Austin? Where's your little spreadsheet? There it is. Oh, this is a good one. Electric cars road trip problem. Even the Department of the Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, set out on a road trip in an electric vehicle, and to much to her dismay, she had to switch to fossil fuels. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mom, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great. Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt bullshit is so spicy, apparently, that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me Pops build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
My name is Daniel Bushell. Top officials say the White House is behind the terrorism of their population and new evidence from 9/11. Coming up.
Whistleblowers leak U.S. talks with the head of Al-Qaeda. World Trade 7 is shown on Times Square. And the father of a Twin Towers victim tells us about being attacked by mainstream media.
Decades of terror against their own population blamed on extremists has actually been funded and planned by the White House. Top-level officials in the government and the CIA confirmed. A campaign known as Gladio is called by former CIA head Bill Colby a, quote, major operation. In sworn testimony, one of the conspirators confessed, you have to attack civilians, the people, women, children, far removed from any political game, so authorities can bring in a state of emergency.
It's fascinating. Russia State Television, their official propaganda network, arguing that 9/11 is an inside job. Good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. Glad to have you here. Thanks so much for tuning in to the program. If you like the content today, make sure that you click like and subscribe to the channel so you can get updates whenever we go live. The Wake Up America show is brought to you every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. And we'd love to have you come back and join us again. Now, one of the things that you should know, if it is your first time watching here, is that your host here is a free thinker, which means that I don't buy official narratives into things, and I also tend to not buy the unofficial narrative of how things go. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not an official story theorist, because the reality is so often in between and in the gray. The devil is almost always in the details, and you have to understand that there are always interests on these sides of the story that, one, have a profit interest motive, and then, of course, two, there are state actors on both sides who are spinning us lies and BS about the official and the unofficial events of things that happen. Now, of course, the White House, after 9/11, commissioned a 9/11 commission, which sought to investigate the security breach that led to 9/11. And we have seen nothing but a loss of liberty since then, with the passage of the damnable Patriot Act and the institution of the Transportation Security Administration, which has been the bane of libertarians, of civil libertarians, ever since its inception. No doubt the government has overstepped in taking away our rights, and the unnecessary invasion of Iraq after the invasion of Afghanistan was, of course, a total blunder, waste of resources, and an unnecessary and, in my opinion, unlawful war. And the real conspiracy of 9/11 was the conspiracy against our rights. But I have never really been one to swallow the unofficial accounts that come out of the conspiracy movement, of which many people are my friends and of who many I grew up with in politics, who were 9/11 truthers. For example, my friend Luke Rukowski was one of the very first 9/11 truthers that I ever met when I was living in New York City. We were both volunteers for Congressman Ron Paul's presidential campaign back in 2008. And I will never forget having a conversation with Luke Rukowski, and he remembers it as well. Some of you know him from Timcast fame. He's on Tim Pool's show. I'll never forget the conversation that I had with Luke Rukowski, where he had just gotten done explaining to me not only how 9/11 was an inside job, but that the Operation Northwoods and Operation Gladio and Ajax and all of these operations and all of these people who were controlling us at every single phase. And I said to myself, and I remember after he had finished his rant, I was like, it must be kind of depressing to live that way and to think that everything that you do is not under your control, and that other people are controlling absolutely everything that you do. And I remember him kind of sighing and looking back at me and saying, yes, it is. Actually, it is quite depressing. And I remember at that point in time, I said to myself that maybe it's a good idea for us to be skeptical even of the unofficial narratives. And I was a listener to InfoWars and Prison Planet at the time because, of course, they were the only people who would actually have Congressman Ron Paul, who I admired and supported, on their show. There was a conspiracy against Ron Paul by the mainstream media to prevent him from gaining traction because they didn't like the things that he had to say. And of course, you remember that the Republican Party didn't like what Ron Paul had to say. And we all, of course, remember that Rudy Giuliani moment, the moment where that turned so many of us, and myself included, into libertarians. And here is the moment that so many people, including myself, took a listen to what Congressman Ron Paul had to say, specifically regarding 9/11, that made me start to become an activist. It was this moment, so many years ago, more than 15 years ago, that began my journey into politics and into critical thinking. Take a listen to what Congressman Ron Paul had to say when he was asked about the reasons for 9/11.
Congressman Paul, I believe you are the only man on the stage who opposes the war in Iraq, who would bring the troops home as quickly as almost immediately, sir. Are you out of step with your party? Is your party out of step with the rest of the world? If either of those is the case, why are you seeking its nomination?
Well, I think the party has lost its way because the conservative wing of the Republican Party always advocated a non-interventionist foreign policy. Senator Robert Taft didn't even want to be in NATO. George Bush won the election in year 2000 campaigning on a humble foreign policy, no nation building, no policing of the world. Republicans were elected to end the Korean War. The Republicans were elected to end the Vietnam War. There's a strong tradition of being anti-war in the Republican Party. It is the constitutional position. It is the advice of the founders to follow a non-interventionist foreign policy. Stay out of entangling alliances. Be friends with countries. Negotiate and talk with them and trade with them. Just think of the tremendous improvement relationships with Vietnam. We lost 60,000 men. We came home in defeat. Now we go over there and invest in Vietnam. So there's a lot of merit to the advice of the founders and following the Constitution. And my argument is that we shouldn't go to war so carelessly. When we do, the wars don't end.
Amen. Congressman, you don't think that changed with the 9/11 attack, sir?
What changed?
The non-interventionist policies.
No, non-intervention was a major contributing factor. Have you ever read about the reasons they attacked us? They attack us because we've been over there. We've been bombing Iraq for 10 years.
The reasons they attacked us, not we attacked us.
We've been in the Middle East. I think Reagan was right. We don't understand the irrationality of Middle Eastern politics. So right now we're building an embassy in Iraq that's bigger than the Vatican. We're building 14 permanent bases. What would we say here if China was doing this in our country or in the Gulf of Mexico? We would be objecting. We need to look at what we do from the perspective of what would happen if somebody else did it to us.
Are you suggesting we invited the 9/11 attack, sir?
I'm suggesting that we listen to the people who attacked us and the reason they did it. And they are.
I think that applause would probably be a lot bigger out in the Republican Party audience if this was if Ron Paul were running for president and saying things like this today, because the Republican Party has changed quite significantly since then.
Delighted that we're over there because Osama bin Laden has said, I am glad you're over on our sand because we can target you so much easier. They have already now, since that time, have killed 3,400 of our men, and I don't think it was necessary.
Wendell, may I make a comment on that? That's really an extraordinary statement. It's an extraordinary statement as someone who lived through the attack of September 11, that we invited the attack because we were attacking Iraq. I don't think I've ever heard that before, and I've heard some pretty absurd explanations for September 11.
That's where the Republican Party was then in 2008. That's not where the Republican Party is today.
To withdraw that comment and tell us that he didn't really mean that.
Congressman?
I believe very sincerely that the CIA is correct when they teach and talk about blowback. When we went into Iran in 1953 and installed the Shah, yes, there was blowback. The reaction to that was the taking of our hostages, and that persists. And if we ignore that at our own risk. That if we think that we can do what we want around the world and not incite hatred, then we have a problem. They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there. I mean, what would we think if we were if other foreign countries were doing that to us?
Can I have 30 seconds, please?
No, wait a second.
Everybody wants to jump all over him for that one. I think I disagree to a small extent with Congressman Paul that they don't attack us because they're rich and free. I think that they do in part attack us because of our freedoms, because they hate the liberalism of the American West, because they, of course, are theocratic authoritarians over there. But what's important, I think, in this conversation about 9/11, as I call it conspiracy Christmas, is to think about it like this when it comes to the question of whether or not 9/11 was an inside job. If 9/11 was an inside job, that would mean that Ron Paul was lying right there. Think about it for a moment. It can't both be an inside job and blowback, because if it was an inside job, then it wasn't blowback. If we did it to ourselves, it's not blowback. Do you get me? It's so funny how whenever I introduce that idea to a lot of people, most people have never thought about that, right? Because because lots of people have cognitive dissonance about what is real, and logic doesn't contradict logic. If it was an inside job and it was done by George W. Bush with the thermite paint, and we did it to ourselves in order to have a false flag attack and a reason to go into Iraq and Afghanistan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, well, that meant that we did it to ourselves and that it wasn't blowback for our policies in the Middle East. And a lot of people apparently seem to know better than Ron Paul, because if they say that it was an inside job, then they claim to know better than a sitting congressman who was able to have access to intelligence briefings, who was telling us quite clearly that, yes, we were attacked by Osama bin Laden and Saudi nationals as well. There was a conspiracy. 9/11 fits the definition of a conspiracy. But most of the conspiracy in my mind has been in the cover-up. Notice I don't say that conspiracy theory. There's a difference between a conspiracy theory, which is an idea of a conspiracy but not yet proven, versus a conspiracy, which is a proven conspiracy, which is, of course, two or more individuals who agree to commit a crime at some time in the future. Osama bin Laden attacking us and killing 3,000 Americans in the World Trade Centers counts as itself a conspiracy. So ask yourself this: do you believe Ron Paul, or do you think that he is lying? Because if you believe that 9/11 was an inside job, then you have to believe that Congressman Ron Paul was not telling us the truth there. You have to say that Russia State Television, which I introduced this segment with, Russia State Television is correct, that Vladimir Putin is just trying to warn us poor, pitiful Americans about the evils of the American government. He can do no wrong, and that everything that Vladimir Putin says is the truth, and Russia State Propaganda TV doesn't have any reason to lie to us about 9/11. But they do. And of course, the last question on this one is, the people always bring up and trending on Twitter is the question of Building 7, right? 9/11 conspiracy theorists love to point to World Trade 7 as evidence that the attacks were a quote unquote controlled demolition. But the evidence actually suggests otherwise. If you just look at at World Trade 7 coming down, it would make you suspicious, right? And when I watched the 9/11 Loose Change documentaries about things, I saw plenty of videos from conspiracy theorists who claimed that it was brought down in a controlled demolition. If you look at it and someone tells you that, yeah, it looks as if that's the case, right? But from popular mechanics, it is impossible for a building to fall the way it fell without explosives being involved, says Rosie O'Donnell in 2007. She says, for the first time in history, steel was melted by fire. It is physically impossible. This was Rosie O'Donnell in 2007. In fact, it's not impossible, because the collapse of World Trade 7 actually proved that it was possible. Uncontrolled fires by the collapse of the sprinkler system and upward thermal expansion buckled the floor tiles of the building. it would fall straight down because since heat rises, the flames provided an enormous upward thrust on the tiles, cracking them and bringing the structure down. And you don't actually have to completely melt a steel girder for it to fail. All you have to do is get it hot enough that it bends. And once it starts to bend, it can collapse. NIST's report concluded, the National Institute for Science and Technology, concluded that the failure was of the structural connections that were designed to resist gravity loads, but not thermally induced lateral loads. New evidence has showed both an enormous hole in the south side of World Trade 7, and I actually believe I have that video that shows the holes in the bottom of the building that were caused by, guess what? They were caused by two buildings which had crashed and collapsed into World Trade 7. Take a look at this video here of the base of World Trade 7 as it's burning. You'll be able to see some of the structural damage from World Trade 7. You can see half of the building had been hollowed out from the destruction. This is World Trade 7 on 9/11. And these are, you can see these windows blown out and blasted and fire and smoke coming out of the bottom of the building. Right here. And you can watch this and see more of this video at my website, thelibertarianrepublic.com. The title of that article is Debunking 9/11 Conspiracy Theories, which I wrote about a decade ago, right? And I go through the Loose Change documentary, I go through Building 7, and I also talk about the reason why foreign intelligence agencies want to spread this kind of disinformation here in the United States, of course, because it is in Russia, China, and North Korea and other countries' best interests for us to be divided against one another, because that's good, of course, for our enemies. Thanks so much for tuning into the Wake Up America show. We appreciate you very much. Remember, it doesn't have to be either or. I can still believe that the 9/11 Commission report was BS and think that Loose Change was also BS, right? The truth is somewhere in the middle. Conspiracy was in the cover-up for the people who were asleep at the switch, who should have protected us on that day, who had warnings that we might have this kind of attack, but they did nothing. Look that up, Condoleezza Rice. As always, I believe that, if you believe that George W. Bush planned 9/11, you'd have to believe that George W. Bush is smart. And that's just not smart. I believe in a government of incompetence, not a government of competence. If they can commit a conspiracy for evil, why couldn't they commit a conspiracy for good? Why couldn't they actually run and manage socialized healthcare? If they could pull off 9/11, they could absolutely have run a socialized healthcare system, right? No, government is incompetent, as always. And you'll hear me slaughtering sacred cows right here on the Wake Up America show. I know I tell you things that you don't want to hear, but isn't that much better than the mainstream media and the alternative media, which just feeds you red meat all day, telling you everything that you want to hear? I know that I lose followers, and I know I lose supporters, and I know I lose fans when I say this. So that's how you know that I'm being honest. All right. We'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Have a good one. Don't forget to check out ap4libertyshop.com. That's right. Get some delicious Founding Flavors coffee, which I definitely did not steal the idea for, and an awesome Don't Tread on Me shirt to get you kicked out of a public school wearing these days. We'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericashow.com.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
Mao ordered his citizens to throw off the four olds: old thinking, old culture, old customs, and old habits. So your whole life went in the garbage overnight, no biggie. And those who resisted were attacked by an army of purifiers called the Red Guard, who went around the country putting dunce caps on people. Yeah, who didn't take to being a new kind of mortal being.
If you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
Well, things haven't been so sweet for Ben & Jerry's after the company posted an anti-American tweet, a few of them, on the 4th of July. The ice cream makers declared the United States was founded on stolen indigenous land.
Well, someone should tell Target that, because they're now selling swimsuits with tuckums in the women's section of the store. And they even have a line just for kids.
Yeah, we're going to reach out to Ben & Jerry's and ask them how they can live with themselves as they operate a multi-billion-dollar company on stolen land while declaring other people give up their so-called stolen land.
This is the child section. This is literally the kids section. I'm next to a literal onesie that says whatever the hell that means. We have glad you came out, and I'm so happy that you're queer. In the kids section. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry, but pride and toddler don't belong in the same sentence.
Good news! Starbucks will offer its workers reimbursement of travel expenses related to accessing abortion and gender-affirming procedures.
Kyle Rittenhouse was seen wearing a Black Rifle Coffee Company shirt, and they wanted to distance themselves from that individual. Key employees at the company also were donating to Democrats. Hafer doubled down on throwing many in his base under the bus, describing them as racist and a repugnant group of people.